I moved into the old house on the edge of town in the middle of October. The kind of October where the wind seems to whisper secrets through the bare trees and shadows stretch longer than they should. I had gotten a good deal on the place. Nobody lived there for years. The previous owner had passed away, they said, quietly and without any family. The town didn't speak much about the house, not directly. People avoided it. At first, I thought it was just superstition. Everyone likes a little local lore to tell at parties. The moment I stepped inside, the air felt wrong. Not in a cold or drafty way, but in a way that made your skin crawl without cause. The floorboards groaned under my weight, and the smell of old wood and something faintly metallic filled the air. I shrugged it off. Old houses smell weird. I unpacked my boxes, turned on the lights, and tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. The first night, I slept poorly. I kept hearing scratching noises coming from the walls. I told myself it was mice. I kept telling myself everything was normal, but when I turned over in bed, I could swear I saw a shadow moving in the corner of the room. My heart pounded, and I told myself it was a trick of the dim light. The next day, I went through the house, looking for anything that could explain the noises. Nothing. The walls were solid. The attic was empty except for dust and old furniture covered in sheets. As the sun set, the house seemed to grow heavier. Shadows pooled in corners, and the house seemed to sigh, like it was alive and breathing around me. That night the noises got louder, not just scratching but whispering, faint voices that I could never quite understand. I tried recording them on my phone, hoping to rationalize it in the morning, but every time I played back the recordings, it was just static. But I knew it wasn't just static. I could feel the tone of the whisper, the cadence, something intentionally rhythmic. I began to avoid the corners of the house. The shadows seemed to follow me. I would move across the room, and I could see them shift out of the corner of my eye. Sleep became impossible. I started staying up all night, wandering from room to room, trying to prove to myself it was just in my head. But there were moments when I felt watched. Heavy, suffocating feelings that made it impossible to breathe. And then I started seeing things. Things that didn't belong. Reflections in mirrors that weren't me. Shapes in the hallways that melted away when I looked directly at them. And worst of all, doors that I knew I hadn't opened seemed to move slightly, as if inviting me to enter. One evening, I found myself standing at the bottom of the attic stairs, drawn there by a force I couldn't explain. The air was thick and warm, and a low hum vibrated through my chest. The door at the top of the stairs was slightly ajar, though I had closed it earlier. As I climbed, I could hear faint footsteps ahead of me, slow, deliberate. I told myself to stop, to turn back, but my legs moved as if on their own. I reached the top, and the door opened fully. Inside, the room was empty. Dust motes floated in a beam of light from the small window, but the space felt wrong. In the corner, I saw a figure crouched, black, featureless, except for a glimmering hint of eyes that reflected the light. I froze. The figure slowly turned toward me. It didn't move like a human. It jerked unnaturally, as if the movement was being performed by something else entirely. Then it spoke. Not words I could understand, just a sound, guttural and low, vibrating directly into my chest. I stumbled back, fell down the stairs, and barely made it out of the house before dawn. I tried leaving that day. I packed my things and drove away. The town was silent. Not a soul on the streets, not even the wind. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw the house, or maybe something else. A shadow standing at the window watching me leave. I thought leaving would end it. I thought the experience was tied to that cursed place, but it was. That night back in my new apartment in the city, I woke to the scratching sound again. Only this time it came from inside my walls. I tried to convince myself it was coincidence, that I was just imagining it because of the fear still lingering in me. But the shadows were here too. Always at the edge of my vision, watching, waiting. I started hearing whispers not just at night but during the day, in the grocery store, at the park, even at work. Faint voices that made no sense, that promised things I didn't want, whispered warnings I couldn't ignore. The scratching turned to tapping, always a rhythm, like a message I could almost decode. And then came the dreams. Vivid, waking dreams where I was back in that house, walking the hallways as if I had never left. The figure appeared in every room, always crouched, always watching. It never spoke in the dreams, but I could feel its intent. malice, hunger, and I began to notice changes in myself. Small things at first. Objects moved in my apartment when I wasn't looking. My phone would have images I didn't take. Files on my computer would appear and disappear. But more disturbing were the voices in my head. Faint at first, like the echo of a distant thought, but growing stronger, insistent. They didn't speak to me, they spoke through me. I would catch myself moving, doing things I didn't remember deciding to do, writing things I couldn't recall typing, standing at the window staring into the night without knowing why. I couldn't escape. Every place I went it followed, the figure, the whispering, the tapping. One night I woke to find my apartment completely dark. My eyes slowly adjusted and I saw it. The figure in the corner of the room, crouched, still featureless except for those glimmering eyes. I screamed, but no sound came out. I moved to run, but my legs didn't obey. It stood and moved toward me, not like a human walking. It slid across the floor, all angles and impossible geometry. The whispers filled my head until I thought I would explode. And then the voice in my mind said clearly, terrifyingly, "You can never leave." I woke up drenched in sweat and shivering, the taste of metal in my mouth, my heart hammering as if it wanted to escape my chest. The room was empty, or at least it looked empty. But I knew better, I could feel it. The air was heavier than it should have been, thick with something that didn't belong. I tried to shake it off, tried to convince myself it had been a nightmare. But when I turned toward the corner, it was there again, crouched, silent, waiting, those glimmering eyes cutting through the darkness like blades. I couldn't move. My body was frozen with fear. I couldn't scream. I couldn't run. It tilted its head slowly, as if studying me, measuring me. I had the terrifying sense that it wasn't just watching, it was learning. The tapping in my walls started again, soft at first, like rain against glass, then louder, more deliberate, moving in a rhythm that made no sense but felt deliberate. I realized it was counting what I had no idea. The whispers returned, not from the corners of the room this time, but inside my skull, inescapable, insistent. They spoke in a language I couldn't understand but somehow knew. I felt myself beginning to obey them, to move in ways I didn't intend, to think thoughts that weren't mine. I tried to resist, tried to fight, but it was exhausting. Every ounce of willpower I had was drained by their constant insistence. Days blurred into nights. I stopped leaving my apartment. I stopped answering my phone. Friends and family tried to reach me, but I couldn't respond. Every time I left the bedroom, I felt watched, followed. The figure was everywhere. Sometimes I would catch glimpses in reflections in the windows, in the faint glare of my television screen. Always crouched, always watching, always waiting. I started seeing more of them. Shadows in the hallways of my mind, in the corners of my vision, multiplying when I blinked. I would see dozens of them suddenly, standing just outside my peripheral vision, vanishing whenever I tried to focus. I became paranoid. I knew I was losing touch with reality, but it didn't matter. The whispers told me it didn't matter. They told me I was nothing without them, and I began to believe it. I couldn't sleep without seeing them. I couldn't eat without imagining them feeding on me. I started to notice that the apartment itself had changed. Doors that were closed now appeared slightly ajar. Objects moved. My own reflection in the mirror didn't always match my movements. One morning I watched my reflection smile at me when I had not smiled. I dropped the mirror. It shattered, but the smile remained in the shards, staring up at me, mocking me. I tried to leave again. I packed a bag and drove, hopping the movement of the car, the lights of the city, the presence of people around me would break the connection. But it didn't. The whispers followed me. The tapping followed me. And worse, the figure began to appear outside my car, crouched on the curb in alleyways, standing still, just staring. I started driving at night to escape it, but darkness brought it closer. I tried driving during the day, but shadows exist even in sunlight. I began to realize that there was no escaping it. Not here, not anywhere. The house had followed me. The figure had followed me. It had never been about the building. It had been about me. One night, completely exhausted, I sat in my car, parked on the edge of a desolate highway, and tried to make sense of it. I whispered to myself that it was a hallucination, that I was losing my mind. But then the tapping came from inside the car. The whispering filled the interior, the very air vibrating with its presence. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw dozens of eyes staring at me from the backseat, the passenger seat, the dashboard. The figure had multiplied inside my car. My hands shook so badly I couldn't start the engine. And then I felt it. Cold, wet, crawling across my skin like fingers made of shadow. I screamed finally, a raw sound tearing from my throat. Figure crouched, tilting its head. The whispering stopped. Silence. Then one voice, clear, distinct, spoke in words I understood directly into my mind. "You belong here." My vision blurred, my thoughts scrambled. I tried to fight, but I couldn't. I felt my body begin to move on its own, opening the car door, stepping into the night. And then the world changed. The city around me melted away into darkness. Shapes twisted in impossible geometries. The streetlights bent into impossible angles. Buildings stretched taller than they should have, the sky blacker than night. I realized I had entered the world of the figure, its world. I walked, unable to resist, through streets that shouldn't exist, past buildings that bent space, into an alley where dozens of crouched figures waited. Each one glimmered with those piercing eyes. And in the center, the first one I had seen, taller, more solid than the rest, stared directly at me. The whispers returned, not just in my head, but all around me. I understood them now. I could feel them as if their thoughts were mine. They told me about others before me, people who had tried to leave, people who had tried to fight. They all ended up here, all became part of the shadows. The figure extended a limb, impossibly long, and I felt a cold hand wrap around my chest. It pulled me forward and my body screamed in resistance, but I had none. I woke up in the apartment, or at least it looked like the apartment, but it was. The walls were blacker than anything I had seen before. The mirror on the wall reflected not me, but a shadow of me crouched and waiting. The tapping and whispering continued, louder than ever. I realized I had not escaped. I had not returned to reality. I was inside it now. The house, the shadows, the figure, they had all followed me. And worse, I felt a pull in my chest. A tie to that first house, to the attic, to the darkness that had chosen me. I am writing this now because I have to tell someone, because if I stop, I know it will come closer, I know it will take me completely. The shadows are growing stronger, the whispers more insistent, the tapping relentless. I can feel it learning me, consuming me. There is no escape. I have tried, I have run, I have screamed. I am nothing without it, and yet I survive, at least in part, to warn you. Do not move into abandoned houses at the edge of town. Do not ignore the whispers in the walls. Do not think you can outrun it. It will follow you. It will find you. And one day, when you think you are safe, it will be there, crouched in the corner of your vision, its eyes reflecting your fear, whispering your name, waiting for the moment you finally stop running. I can feel it now, crouched in the corner of the room, tilting its head, and I know I cannot look away. It has me. It always had me.